The galaxy believed it knew humans. They were weak, scattered, insignificant. Civilizations whispered tales of human failure, of colonies falling to minor raids, of fleets destroyed because they lacked numbers, technology, or coordination. They thought humans were no threat, small, fragile, and easy to ignore. They were wrong. Far too wrong. On the edge of Imperial-controlled space, a single human vessel drifted alone. It was a small ship, battered from years of patrols and minor skirmishes, its hull scarred by collisions with meteors and minor energy strikes. The ship's engines hummed quietly, struggling to maintain its course through the cold void of deep space. Around it, hundreds of Imperial warships formed a deadly web, encircling the tiny vessel like predators closing in on an unaware prey. Each ship was massive, armed with dozens of weapon arrays, shields stronger than most planets. Their presence was a statement, a declaration of power meant to intimidate and crush. The Imperial Admiral observed the small human vessel through his command viewport, his golden armor glinting under the harsh light of distant stars. He laughed, a sound that rolled through the corridors of his flagship like thunder. So this is what the humans send against us. A single ship. A relic. Do they not know how hopeless this is? His lieutenants smiled nervously. Some whispered among themselves, incredulous that one vessel dared enter the Armada's patrol zone. Others were too afraid to speak. They had seen countless species crushed under Imperial might, and yet this human vessel floated without a care, seemingly unaware of the death waiting for it. Inside the human ship, the crew trembled. The vessel shook slightly under the pressure of the surrounding fleet's graviton field. Lights flickered in the corridors. Warnings blared softly in the control room. The young officers were pale, some sweating, their hands gripping consoles too tightly. They had trained for years, but this was beyond anything they had imagined. They were facing the entire might of the Imperial Armada, hundreds of ships, each one far stronger than their own, each capable of destroying them within minutes. Yet the human commander remained calm. His eyes scanned the displays, reading every movement, every energy fluctuation, every subtle pulse of the enemy ships. He did not panic. He did not yell. He did not wave or plead for mercy. His presence alone steadied the crew. They had followed him through far worse situations, but nothing had prepared them for this. He leaned over the central console, his voice steady and quiet, carrying a weight of authority that made the crew straighten in unison. "Prepare for what you cannot imagine," he said. The words seemed to linger in the ship's corridors, echoing softly through the humming engines and the flickering lights. The young officers looked at each other, unsure whether to feel fear or awe. The commander's calm was not hollow, it was real, resolute, unshakable. The ship, old and battered though it was, seemed to respond. Sensors flickered, not with warnings of danger, but as if the vessel itself recognized the gravity of the moment. Engines hummed louder, stabilizers aligning in ways they had never aligned before, energy cores pulsing in synchronization with the crew's heartbeat. Outside, the Imperial Admiral laughed again, louder this time, a booming echo across the command deck. "Do they think words will save them?" he barked. "Do they believe courage can stop hundreds of Imperial warships? Prepare to destroy them. Spare no shots. I want that ship obliterated before it can blink." The fleet shifted as one. Hundreds of vessels adjusted their formations, weapons arrays glowing. Lasers and plasma turrets powered up. The gravity of the impending battle pressed across space itself. But even in this overwhelming threat, the human vessel did not move recklessly. It adjusted its orientation slowly, deliberately, positioning itself in a way that seemed almost defiant. Inside, the commander's crew worked with a single-minded purpose. Every officer knew their role, every engineer their task. The vessel was small, but it was precise. It was not designed for brute force, it was designed for agility, for unpredictability, for survival against odds that should have been impossible. The human mind, trained in improvisation and strategy, now became the vessel's deadliest weapon. "Targeting systems are ready," the weapons officer said, voice shaking but controlled. "Good," the commander replied. "But don't fire unless I say. Let them think we are weak. Let them underestimate us. Patience is a weapon they have forgotten exists." A lieutenant asked nervously, "Sir, what if they fire first?" The commander's eyes met theirs. "Then we survive. That is what humans do. We endure. We adapt. We turn their arrogance into our advantage. Outside, the Imperial fleet began its assault. Energy beams cut through the void, the first warning shots fired to test the vessel's shields. The human ship twisted through space, moving in patterns too complex to follow. Sensors detected distortions, thrusters burning at impossible angles, shields flaring at critical moments. The crew followed the commander's lead perfectly, each movement calculated, each action synchronized. Imperial officers began to notice. This ship is responding faster than it should, one muttered. Its maneuvers are impossible. Impossible, the admiral roared. Impossible is human pride. Crush it anyway. But the more they attacked, the more the vessel seemed to awaken. Hidden systems activated, some unknown even to the crew, as if the ship itself remembered secrets long dormant. The hum of engines grew louder, the lights pulsed in harmony, and the sensors began to detect patterns within the fleet, weak points, blind spots, redundancies. The vessel was learning, adapting, anticipating. The human commander smiled faintly. He knew the galaxy had always ignored this. Humanity's strength had never been in sheer numbers, never in raw firepower. It was in mind, in heart, in ingenuity. And now, surrounded by the galaxy's most powerful fleet, that strength revealed itself. Imperial lasers struck the ship. Shields flared. Hull plates groaned under the force. But the vessel endured. And as it moved, as it adapted, as it survived, a ripple of something ancient and ignored stirred deep within its core. The galaxy had forgotten that humans could endure the impossible. That they could face annihilation and still find a way forward. That they could survive when every law of probability said they should not. The admiral's laughter faded as reports flooded in, shields holding longer than expected, evasive maneuvers, weapons not responding to targeting, systems adapting. His face paled. For the first time, he realized that victory might not be guaranteed. One small, damaged vessel, alone in the void, had become more than a target. It had become a problem the Armada could not easily solve. Inside, the human crew worked tirelessly. Exhaustion threatened, but focus did not waver. They dodged, twisted, and struck in subtle, precise ways that confused and demoralized the enemy. Every movement of the vessel was purposeful, every decision calculated. And in the hearts of the crew, a quiet confidence grew. They were facing impossible odds, but they were not afraid. They were human. And humans endured. Sensors detected the fleet's weak points. Energy projections, shield overlaps, gaps in formation, everything the Imperials had relied upon to crush the small ship now betrayed them. And the human commander, calm and calculating, began to plan. Not a desperate escape. Not a reckless attack. A strategy that could turn this lone vessel into a weapon of unimaginable impact, simply by outthinking an entire armada. The Imperial Admiral screamed orders, desperate now, unaccustomed to being outmaneuvered. His ships fired in unison, energy bolts tearing through space, but each attack was countered, dodged, or redirected. The human vessel seemed to anticipate every move. It was as if the ship itself understood strategy, courage, and survival as the crew worked in perfect unity with its systems. And then, in the quiet moments between blasts, the commander allowed himself a thought. This is the moment the galaxy always forgot. Humanity was not meant to be weak. Humanity was not meant to be predictable. Humanity, when cornered, could become a force that no empire could calculate, no army could anticipate, and no galaxy could ignore. The tiny vessel continued to drift, weaving through destruction, surviving against odds that should have been impossible. And deep within its core, the human spirit, ancient and unyielding, awakened fully. The galaxy believed it knew humans. It did not. And now, it would learn. The galaxy thought it knew humans, but it had never seen what one small vessel could carry. Inside the battered ship, systems hummed quietly, almost obediently, responding to the crew as if it understood their thoughts. The human commander walked through the control room, calm and precise. Every crew member followed his movements, their actions fluid and synchronized. This was no ordinary crew. Every officer, every engineer, every pilot had trained for decades to adapt, to improvise, to think beyond the impossible. Yet nothing had prepared them for the Imperial Armada surrounding them now. The weapons officer glanced at the targeting systems. "Sir, hundreds of ships." Our weapons barely reach them. They'll annihilate us before we can fire. The commander shook his head slowly, eyes scanning the holographic display of the enemy fleet. We don't need to reach them. They will reach us. And when they do, they will make mistakes. All we need is one opening. One. The crew felt the weight of those words, the gravity of hope mixed with fear. Their vessel was old. Its engines were patched repeatedly, its shields reinforced by ingenuity rather than raw power. Sensors flickered constantly under the strain of the Imperial fleet's energy fields. Yet there was something alive in the ship, something the galaxy had long ignored. Something human. The ship's engineer leaned over the core systems console, whispering to himself, as if afraid the admiral outside might hear. It's responding. Systems are adapting faster than I can even calculate. It's almost like it's alive. The commander overheard him and nodded slightly. It is alive. Not in the way they think. Not a machine or weapon. It's alive because we are inside it. Because we are human. Outside, the Imperial fleet continued to press forward. Massive warships adjusted positions, weapons charged, targeting arrays glowing with lethal precision. From the admiral's perspective, victory was certain. One small vessel could not survive hundreds of ships. Yet inside that vessel, humanity worked quietly, with meticulous care, each system and each crew member anticipating the impossible. The human pilot, a young woman barely 22, gripped the control yoke tightly. Sweat ran down her temple, but her hands did not shake. Engines are responding beyond expected parameters, sir. We could perform a maneuver that should be impossible. The commander smiled faintly. Then we will do the impossible. The crew worked as one. Sensors detected enemy formations, scanning for weak points in the armada. The engineers calculated energy flows, shield overlaps, and structural weaknesses. Pilots prepared to weave through gaps that seemed non-existent. Every human, every system, every calculation converged into a single purpose: survival. And as the first beams of the Imperial fleet's assault struck, the human vessel moved with precision that no one could predict. Outside, the admiral's confidence faltered. What is this? How can one vessel evade everything? Impossible, whispered a lieutenant. They shouldn't, they can't. The ship twisted and turned, dodging plasma volleys and graviton strikes. Shields flared, taking damage that would have destroyed lesser vessels. Engines burned beyond recommended capacity, twisting the vessel like a dancer through the void. Each movement seemed deliberate, almost intelligent, but it was the crew, not the ship, guiding every motion. The human commander observed the fleet through the tactical display. Hundreds of enemy ships, massive and powerful, moving in coordinated formation. And yet, he saw the patterns, the gaps, the blind spots, the small errors in timing that even a perfect AI might have missed. Every moment the enemy made a miscalculation, and every miscalculation was a chance for survival. He tapped the communication panel. Crew, listen carefully. This is not just about dodging fire. This is about making them doubt. Every move we make should confuse them, frustrate them, make them hesitate. Fear is as deadly a weapon as any laser. The weapons officer hesitated. Sir, they are too many. How can fear stop them? The commander's eyes were steady. Because they are arrogant. They believe they control everything. Humans do not need to control. We survive. And doubt spreads faster than lasers. The human vessel glided through the web of the Imperial fleet, dodging strike after strike, surviving damage that should have ended them. Every hit against shields, every strain on engines, every alarm triggered, became part of a rhythm, a dance of survival. The crew began to feel something shift inside them. Fear remained, but it was tempered with a strange exhilaration. They were human. And humans endured. Humans adapted. Humans could do what no empire, no fleet, no calculation could anticipate. Deep inside the ship, hidden compartments opened. Ancient systems, remnants of experimental technology thought long forgotten, activated. Sensors and energy cores hummed in synchronization, responding not to commands, but to instinct, to survival, to necessity. The crew did not fully understand it, but they felt its presence, a strange pulse of power, guiding them, protecting them, amplifying their actions. The Imperial Admiral roared over the comms. "Destroy them! Crush the vessel! Show no mercy!" But every attack failed. The vessel danced through the void, always one step ahead, always avoiding destruction, always exploiting mistakes the Armada could not see. Imperial officers whispered in disbelief. "They're adapting. Learning. How is this possible?" The commander's face was calm, but his mind raced. He calculated, predicted, and improvised faster than any machine. Every decision had weight. Every maneuver carried lives. And yet, in the midst of chaos, there was clarity. They were not just surviving. They were teaching the galaxy something it had long forgotten. Humans were unpredictable, resilient, and relentless. As the first hour of engagement passed, the Imperial fleet's confidence began to falter. Officers argued, ships collided in minor accidents, formation breaks appeared. The human vessel did not attack directly. It did not need to. Its survival alone was a message, a statement that the galaxy's calculations could not account for the human mind, the human heart, the human spirit. And deep inside that small vessel, the crew began to understand what the commander already knew. This was not just about surviving. This was about proving something. Not to the enemy, not to themselves, but to the galaxy. Humanity was alive, clever, and unyielding. One small ship could face hundreds of warships because humans were not just machines or weapons. Humans were more than numbers, more than technology, more than mere survival. Humans were determination made flesh. Humans were hope made real. The ship twisted once more, evading a massive energy beam that should have obliterated it. Shields flared, engines strained, the hull groaned, but the vessel moved. The crew moved. The commander smiled faintly, knowing that this was the moment the galaxy had always ignored. The humans inside this ship were about to prove something no empire could calculate, no armada could suppress, and no civilization could dismiss. Because one small vessel, guided by human minds and human hearts, was about to change everything. And the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. The Imperial Admiral's patience had run out. Hundreds of warships adjusted their positions, forming a tightening net around the lone human vessel. Energy arrays glowed red-hot, weapons locked on. The Admiral's voice thundered across the flagship. "Fire!" In an instant, hundreds of energy beams lanced through the void, converging on the small vessel like a storm of death. The crew inside braced themselves. Alarms screamed, lights flickered violently, and the ship's hull vibrated under the sheer force of concentrated fire. For a moment, time seemed to freeze, the galaxy watching, waiting, certain that humanity would end here, in a flash of destruction. But the human vessel moved. Not randomly, not recklessly, but with precision that defied logic. Thrusters flared, shields pulsed, and the ship twisted through the web of lasers as though it was dancing in space. Each strike that should have been fatal was avoided by mere centimeters. Sensors predicted the paths of beams before they even reached the vessel. Every system worked in harmony with the crew's instincts, responding faster than thought itself. The young pilot, hands gripping the controls, could barely breathe. "Sir, they're everywhere, too fast." The commander's eyes never wavered from the tactical display. "Focus. Watch the patterns. They rely on numbers, but numbers cannot predict courage." As the Imperial fleet unleashed volleys, the vessel's evasive maneuvers became more daring. It darted between massive warships, weaving in and out of energy fire, narrowly avoiding collisions. The crew felt their hearts pound in unison, yet fear was tempered by something stronger, determination. Every move was a choice. Every breath was defiance. They were humans, and humans endured when all odds said they should fall. The Admiral's laughter, once booming and confident, faltered. "Impossible," he muttered. "This vessel, how does it evade every strike?" Imperial officers scrambled at their consoles. "Sir, targeting systems failing. Weapons not locking. Hull penetration calculations, incorrect." But the human vessel did not fight yet. It did not need to. Survival was its first weapon. Each evasive maneuver frustrated the enemy, each successful dodge planted seeds of doubt. The Armada had never encountered such resilience, never faced opponents who thrived on adaptation rather than brute force. Inside, the human crew began to see something extraordinary. The ship itself seemed to respond to intent. Energy cores pulsed in anticipation, shields flared exactly when needed, systems adjusted faster than any human mind could calculate. It was as if the vessel recognized the impossible and chose to endure it with them. Engineers whispered to each other in awe, "It's alive. It's alive because we are human inside it. It feels what we feel. It reacts when we react. It trusts us, and we trust it." The commander nodded subtly. "Good. Let them underestimate us. Fear comes from arrogance, and they have too much of it." The Imperial Admiral roared again, desperation creeping into his voice. "Concentrate fire. Surround them. Do not let a single one escape. They will not survive." But with each command, the Armada faltered further. The humans' movements were unpredictable. The vessel twisted through the void, evading damage that should have destroyed it. Minor collisions among Imperial ships occurred as they overcompensated for their frustration. Communications broke down. Officers argued. Fear rippled through the Armada, a species unaccustomed to being challenged in such a way, a species that believed no opponent could survive its combined might. The human commander whispered to his crew, calm and unwavering, "Do not fight yet. Let them show their arrogance. Watch, learn, and survive." The crew, hearts racing, understood the gravity of his words. This was no longer just survival. It was a lesson for the galaxy. One small vessel, one crew, could challenge hundreds of ships, not with numbers, but with courage, precision, and intelligence. Humanity was proving something no one had ever believed possible, that resilience and ingenuity could defeat overwhelming odds. The ship twisted again, narrowly avoiding an array of plasma blasts that disintegrated smaller ships around it. Sensors picked up openings in the Armada, gaps created by overconfidence and miscalculation. The commander's mind worked faster than the most advanced Imperial AI. Engage the next phase in 3, 2, 1. Inside the control room, crew members synchronized perfectly, systems adjusting instantly. The vessel exploited the gaps, using the enemy's own momentum against them. Massive ships collided. Shields overloaded. Energy discharges ripped through their formations. The Armada, confident moments ago, was now faltering. Chaos replaced order. The tiny human vessel floated untouched amidst the confusion, a single spark of defiance in a sea of destruction. Imperial officers began to panic. "Sir, they're learning our patterns," one shouted. "Impossible. How can one vessel anticipate hundreds of maneuvers?" The admiral's face turned pale. For the first time, he realized that victory might not be guaranteed. Not because the humans were stronger in firepower, not because they had allies, but because they had something the galaxy had long underestimated: human determination, human ingenuity, and human will. Inside the human vessel, the crew exchanged glances. Fear was still there, but it was tempered by something stronger: pride. Not arrogance, not ego, but pride in their unity, their courage, and their ability to endure when everything said they should fail. Engineers recalibrated systems mid-flight, pilots twisted through impossible angles, weapons officers prepared countermeasures that would have been unthinkable a week ago. Every human on board acted in perfect synchronization, a living organism of intelligence and bravery. The commander looked at the tactical display one final time. They will try again. They will not give up. But neither will we. Remember this moment. Remember that humans endure when no one expects it. And when we strike, it will not be mercy. It will be justice. The galaxy has ignored us too long. The ship shuddered under a glancing hit from an Imperial destroyer. Sparks flew. Alarms screamed. But the vessel twisted and survived, intact and operational. The crew breathed collectively, adrenaline mixing with awe. They had survived the first strike of the Armada. Not by firepower, not by luck, but by heart, mind, and unity. The galaxy was watching. The Armada believed this small vessel would be annihilated. They were wrong. The human vessel was alive, aware, and ready. And within its small hull, the human crew knew one thing with certainty: no matter the odds, no matter the enemy, humans endure. Humans adapt. Humans survive. And in that moment, for the first time, the Armada felt what it had long ignored: fear. The galaxy had never seen humans fight like this. The enemy had never faced a species that could survive hundreds of ships, and the crew inside the lone vessel understood the truth. Survival was not just about strength, it was about heart, mind, and courage. And as the Imperial fleet regrouped, frustrated and confused, the commander whispered to his crew, calm and unwavering, "Now, we teach them a lesson they will never forget." The Imperial Armada had expected a quick victory. They had prepared meticulously, deployed hundreds of ships, and calculated every angle. Yet, in the void of space, all their calculations, their confidence, their arrogance, were failing. The small human vessel, battered and alone, moved with precision no one could anticipate. Every maneuver defied logic. Every survival seemed impossible. And now, the time had come for humans to show that survival was only the beginning. Inside the vessel, the crew worked like a single mind. The weapons officer activated a series of countermeasures that had never been tested in real combat. Engineers rerouted energy through shields and thrusters in a sequence designed to confuse sensors. Pilots prepared daring maneuvers that would tear through the enemy's formation. And the commander, calm and unwavering, surveyed the battlefield with eyes that saw beyond numbers and calculations. "This is it," he whispered. "They believe they control everything. Let's remind them they never did." The first strike of the Imperial fleet came in waves, massive plasma beams cutting across space. The human vessel twisted, barely evading destruction. But this time, it wasn't just survival. The crew had learned. They had observed patterns, anticipated movements, and exploited every arrogance the enemy had displayed. As the human ship darted through the web of fire, it triggered the first phase of the counterattack. Energy fields pulsed from the vessel, bending light and matter around it. Gravitational distortions rippled outward, subtly altering the course of approaching enemy ships. Imperial sensors screamed warnings. Officers on the Admiral's flagship yelled, "Something is wrong with the void. Ships are colliding, systems failing." The human commander leaned forward, voice steady. "Focus. Strike where they least expect. Turn their strength into their weakness." The crew obeyed instinctively. Weapons fired with perfect timing, exploiting gaps in the armada. Energy pulses overloaded the shields of the largest destroyers, turning their own power against them. Massive ships collided, not from human firepower, but from miscalculations the humans had created through subtle maneuvers. Chaos spread like wildfire through the armada. For the first time, fear reached the Admiral's voice. "Impossible. They cannot, they should not, stop them. Destroy that vessel." But it was too late. The humans had already set their plan in motion. The small vessel twisted through the wreckage it had created, moving with elegance and precision that seemed almost superhuman. Pilots weaved through debris fields, engines flaring in perfect harmony with shields. The vessel was no longer just surviving, it was dictating the battle. Inside, the crew could feel the shift. The fear that had once gripped them was replaced with something stronger: exhilaration, clarity, and unity. They were not just a crew. They were one mind, one heart, one purpose. And that purpose was survival and defiance. Engineers adjusted systems in real time, rerouting energy to weapons that had been offline for years, using the ship itself as a force multiplier. Sensors detected openings in enemy formation, and the crew exploited them with precision. Outside, the Imperial fleet was collapsing. Ships collided under the strain of their own maneuvers, weapons fired into empty space, and officers shouted in confusion. The Admiral, for the first time, felt true panic. They're controlling the battlefield. How can one vessel? The human commander whispered to himself, calm as ever. "Because we are human. Because we endure. Because we adapt. And because we never surrender." The first wave of the counterattack had shattered the Armada's front lines. Destroyers were crippled, cruisers adrift, and the flagship itself narrowly avoided a direct collision. The fleet's formation was in ruins, yet the Admiral refused to retreat. Pride and protocol held him in place. His mistake: he had underestimated what humans were capable of, and that mistake was already costing him everything. Inside the human vessel, the crew continued their synchronized assault. Pilots twisted between debris, engineers rerouted energy with near-magical precision, weapons officers targeted weak points revealed by their own clever traps. Every move was perfect. Every strike calculated. Every decision carried the weight of survival and vengeance for the countless underestimates humans had endured across the galaxy. The ship's hull groaned under strain, but it moved like a predator among prey. The Admiral could only watch in disbelief. They are manipulating the battlefield. Using the void itself. The human commander's voice cut through the tense quiet of the control room. Remember this moment. Remember what it means to be human. One mind, one heart, one vessel, can change the fate of a galaxy. And in that instant, the vessel executed a daring maneuver that would become legend. It twisted through the void, exploiting gravitational distortions it had created, and passed directly through the enemy formation. In its wake, energy beams struck ships that were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Massive Imperial cruisers collided. Destroyers were forced off course and disabled. Chaos consumed the armada, and the lone human vessel emerged intact, moving like a ghost through the wreckage. The crew, exhausted but exhilarated, realized the magnitude of what they had achieved. Against hundreds of ships, they had turned defense into offense. They had made the enemy fight themselves. They had survived against impossible odds. And more importantly, they had proven something no one had believed, that humans could endure, adapt, and strike back with ingenuity that defied calculation. The Admiral, staring at the destruction, felt a cold dread. They are not just surviving. They are teaching us something we cannot unlearn. They are human. Inside the vessel, the commander allowed himself a rare, faint smile. Yes, he whispered. They will remember. The galaxy will remember. Humanity is not what they think. We endure. We survive. We fight with heart. And no armada, no empire, will ever forget that again. The human vessel floated silently, battered but undefeated, in the center of chaos it had created. The first phase of its counterattack was complete, and the galaxy had begun to learn that one small ship, guided by human courage, ingenuity, and heart, could challenge and defeat an entire armada. And in that silence, filled only with the hum of the engines and the adrenaline of survival, the crew realized something even greater. This was only the beginning. Humanity had turned the tide of battle, but the war, and the galaxy's understanding of what humans were capable of, was far from over. The battlefield lay in ruin, yet the Imperial Armada refused to retreat. Pride, arrogance, and the unshakable belief in their own superiority bound them. Ships drifted, crippled, yet still bristling with weapons. The Admiral's fury could be felt across the void. "Finish them," he roared. "Do not let a single vessel escape. Obliterate every human." But the small human vessel, battered, burned, yet unbroken, did not panic. Inside, the crew moved with calm precision, almost as if time itself slowed around them. The commander studied the enemy formation, noting every flaw, every hesitation, every opening. Hundreds of massive ships with overwhelming firepower, yet so blind to their own vulnerabilities. The humans had learned their lesson, and now, it was time to teach the enemy theirs. "Listen carefully," the commander said, voice steady and commanding. "We do not attack blindly. We do not need destruction to prove a point. Every move will be precise. Every action calculated. They think strength is power. We know power is intelligence. We survive by exploiting what they overlook: arrogance, impatience, and predictability." The crew absorbed every word. Their fear had shifted into determination, and determination into confidence. Engineers rerouted energy through engines and shields in patterns designed to confuse enemy sensors. Weapons officers readied counterattacks not of brute force, but of cunning. Pilots traced impossible trajectories through the void, weaving between colossal ships as though gravity itself obeyed their will. The first phase of the human strategy was subtle, almost invisible to the Imperial eye. They did not strike directly. Instead, they forced the armada into movement patterns that exposed weaknesses. Destroyers collided, cruisers drifted off course, and smaller vessels were caught in crossfire from their own allies. Each misstep was calculated, anticipated, and amplified by the human crew. The Admiral's voice trembled, for the first time stripped of confidence. They are using our own formations against us. Impossible. Stop them. Stop that vessel." Inside, the human crew smiled faintly. They had predicted this moment. Every flaw in the enemy formation, every crack in their overconfidence, had been noted. Every ship's path had been studied, every angle of attack measured. The humans were not reacting, they were guiding the battle. The Armada fought against itself, unaware that they had already lost control. The weapons officer spoke, barely above a whisper. "Sir, targeting systems suggest we could disable their flagship without firing a single shot. We could manipulate them entirely." The commander's eyes glinted with focus. "Exactly. Do not underestimate the power of human ingenuity. Let the Armada collapse from within. Let arrogance and pride do the work for us. We will strike when the time is right." The crew worked in silent harmony, every action reinforcing the others. The ship's engines flared, creating micro-distortions in the void. Sensors detected gaps in energy fields, shields, and weapons ranges. Pilots exploited these gaps with precision, nudging enemy ships into collisions and misaligned formations. Engineers manipulated energy flows to create temporary blindness in enemy targeting systems. It was not brute strength. It was strategy, patience, and intelligence, a display the galaxy had never anticipated from humanity. The Imperial Admiral shouted orders, desperate now, but the commands came too late. The Armada was unraveling faster than they could correct. Cruisers drifted aimlessly. Destroyers overloaded their systems. Energy beams misfired, striking friend instead of foe. Chaos spread like wildfire through the once perfect formation. The human commander allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. Not for glory, not for pride, but because his crew had survived, thrived, and turned despair into opportunity. He walked through the control room, each step steady, each glance a reassurance to those around him. "Do not fire yet," he said. "Observe. Learn. They are crumbling on their own. Our strength is patience." The crew obeyed without hesitation. Hearts raced, adrenaline surged, but focus never wavered. The ship itself seemed alive, responding instinctively to danger, shielding the crew, amplifying their efforts. Each subtle adjustment, each calculated maneuver, turned potential destruction into advantage. Imperial officers stared in disbelief. "They are controlling the battlefield, without attacking," one whispered. "How?" The Admiral's face was pale, lips trembling. "They are humans. They are not like anything we have faced." The human vessel's crew exploited the moment. Tiny energy pulses disrupted shield harmonics in enemy ships. Gravitational anomalies nudged massive cruisers into collisions. The Armada's strength was being eroded, not by direct assault, but by cunning, adaptability, and the terrifying precision of one vessel guided by human minds. The commander spoke quietly to his crew, almost reverently. "This is what it means to be human. We do not rely on size. We do not rely on firepower. We rely on mind, heart, and unity. We endure. We survive. And we will teach the galaxy to respect that truth." The crew, faces illuminated by blinking consoles, nodded. Each movement, each decision, was a testament to humanity's ingenuity. Fear remained, but it was transformed into courage. Desperation became clarity. And in that clarity, they realized they were no longer merely surviving, they were dominating the battlefield without a single direct strike. The Admiral's fury turned to despair. He realized too late that his Armada, the pride of the galaxy, was collapsing from within. Humans had turned their strength into weakness, their arrogance into downfall. The lesson was clear: never underestimate a species that thrives on endurance, ingenuity, and courage. The lone vessel glided through the battlefield, battered but undefeated. It was small, yet mighty. Alone, yet unstoppable. And in the hearts of its crew burned a quiet certainty. No empire, no armada, no calculation could match human ingenuity when courage and heart guided every move. The galaxy had begun to learn something profound, something the humans had always known: survival was not enough. Adaptation was not enough. Humanity's true power lay in the ability to endure, to calculate, to manipulate fate itself, and to emerge victorious, no matter the odds. And as the Armada faltered under the humans' subtle, relentless strategy, the commander whispered once more, calm and resolute, "This is how humans win. Not with numbers. Not with firepower. With mind." with courage, with heart. And the galaxy will remember this moment forever. The Imperial Admiral had never experienced anything like this. For decades, he had commanded fleets, crushed planets, and erased resistance with the certainty of absolute power. Yet here, in the cold void of space, all his experience counted for nothing. One small human vessel, battered and outnumbered, had shattered his pride, his formations, and the confidence of every officer in his command. His fleets, the pride of the galaxy, were unraveling. "Impossible," he screamed, voice echoing across the command bridge. "They cannot. They should not survive this. Every calculation, every maneuver, every tactic, all wrong. Why are they still alive?" Imperial officers scrambled at their consoles, fingers flying across controls, attempting to stabilize formations, reroute firepower, regain control. The Admiral's rage was met only with failure. His fleets were colliding, misfiring, and faltering under the invisible hand of human ingenuity. No one had ever fought like this. No one had survived like this. Inside the human vessel, the crew worked in silent unity. Every system operated in perfect harmony with every human on board. Shields flared precisely when enemy energy beams threatened to pierce the hull. Engines twisted and propelled the vessel through impossible paths. Sensors detected gaps, weaknesses, and miscalculations in the armada, and the humans exploited every one. The commander moved through the control room, eyes calm, but mind racing. "They fear us," he said softly. "Good. Let them feel it. Let their arrogance crumble into panic. Fear spreads faster than any weapon. And when it spreads, it becomes unstoppable." The young pilot, her hands steady despite exhaustion, whispered, "Sir, they're losing control. Their ships, they're colliding with each other. We didn't even touch them." The commander's gaze never wavered from the tactical display. "We did not need to. Our presence alone is enough. Humans endure, humans adapt, and humans are unpredictable. They cannot calculate heart. They cannot calculate courage. And that is where we win." The Armada's ships were in chaos. Destroyers drifted, cruisers faltered, and capital ships narrowly avoided colliding with each other. The Imperial officers shouted at each other, blaming miscalculations, sensor failures, even sabotage, but the truth was clear. One human vessel had turned hundreds of warships into instruments of their own confusion. The Admiral slammed his fist on the console. "Concentrate fire. Stop them. They are humans. They are just one vessel. Destroy it now." But the humans inside the vessel were ready. They had observed every move, predicted every adjustment, and were guiding the battle itself. Weapons officers released micropulses that interfered with enemy targeting. Engineers subtly altered the ship's energy signature, creating anomalies that scrambled enemy sensors. Pilots twisted through paths the enemy could never anticipate, nudging massive warships into destructive collisions. The commander spoke softly, almost reverently. "They believe they control the battlefield. Let them continue believing. Every mistake they make is ours to exploit. Patience and precision are our greatest weapons." The crew executed his instructions flawlessly. The vessel moved as one entity, breathing with life and purpose. Every hit it survived, every system it repaired mid-battle, every maneuver that avoided destruction, these became not just survival, but assertion. Humanity had turned desperation into dominance. Outside, the Admiral's fear deepened into paralysis. His voice trembled. They are not just surviving. They are controlling the battle. How? How can one vessel do this? Imperial officers froze, looking at each other in disbelief. "Sir, they are learning our moves, faster than we can anticipate. Faster than any calculation." The commander allowed himself a rare, quiet smile. "Yes," he whispered. "They cannot calculate heart. They cannot calculate courage. And that is why humans endure." The small vessel twisted again, narrowly dodging a coordinated strike from multiple enemy cruisers. Energy beams lanced through space, destroying what remained of enemy formations, not because of raw firepower, but because the humans had predicted their flaws and exploited them. Every ship that collided, every system that failed, every officer that panicked, it was all part of a larger picture the humans were painting in real time. The crew, exhausted but unwavering, felt the weight of the galaxy's attention. They were humans, yes, but in this moment, they were more than that. They were the embodiment of ingenuity, courage, and relentless will. They had survived the impossible and now dictated the outcome of the battle not with numbers, but with heart and mind. The Admiral's voice broke. I have never seen one ship survive hundreds. Inside the human vessel, the commander raised his eyes to the tactical display. Remember this, crew. This is the moment they learn what humans are capable of. One mind, one heart, one crew, can change the course of the galaxy. And as the human vessel moved through the shattered armada, the crew understood the truth. They had survived not by chance, not by luck, but by being human. Every calculation, every improvisation, every courageous choice had created a force no enemy could predict or contain. The galaxy had begun to see humanity in a new light. The armada's confidence was gone, replaced by fear and disbelief. And within the small human vessel, the crew felt something deeper than victory, something eternal, the unbreakable spirit of humanity. The Admiral's screams faded as the vessel disappeared into the void, leaving chaos behind. And in that silence, the human commander whispered once more, "They will never forget this day. They will never underestimate us again. We are human. We endure. We survive. We win." The destruction of the Imperial Armada's front lines spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Command centers on distant worlds lit up with alarms, panic spreading faster than any signal. Fleet after fleet, systems that had once felt invincible now trembled in fear. The galaxy had always believed humans were weak, scattered, insignificant. Now, one small vessel had proven that belief a lie. News traveled faster than any message. From research stations to civilian colonies, from military outposts to trading hubs, everyone watched the reports. One human vessel, alone, had shattered a major Imperial formation. Hundreds of ships destroyed, hundreds more disabled, and the Admiral's pride in ruins. No technology, no calculation, no strategy could have predicted it. Humanity was something entirely different, a force the galaxy had underestimated at its peril. Inside the human vessel, the crew felt the weight of their actions. They were exhausted, every muscle strained, every system pushed to the limit. Yet amidst the fatigue, a quiet exhilaration ran through them. They had survived the impossible. They had outsmarted an entire armada, not with brute force, but with courage, intelligence, and unyielding will. The commander stood at the front of the control room, calm and resolute. He looked at each crew member, their faces illuminated by the glow of the consoles, sweat and dirt marking their determination. "Look at what we have done," he said softly. "We are human. Alone, we faced hundreds of ships. Alone, we showed them that strength is not in numbers, but in heart, mind, and unity." The young pilot, barely able to keep her hands steady, smiled faintly. We really did it, didn't we?" The commander nodded. "Yes. But understand this, the galaxy is watching now. They will remember. And from this moment, everything changes. Humans are no longer insignificant. They are unstoppable when they fight with courage and intelligence." Outside, the wreckage of the Imperial fleet floated in the void, a testament to human ingenuity. Massive cruisers lay in ruins, destroyers disabled, and the flagship itself barely functioning, a shadow of its former power. The surviving Imperial officers whispered in disbelief, fear etched into their faces. We were defeated by one vessel of humans. How is this possible?" The Admiral's face turned pale. For the first time, he felt the weight of true fear. He had underestimated humans. He had believed arrogance and firepower would ensure victory. But humans had something no empire could calculate: adaptability, courage, and the relentless spirit to endure against all odds. Inside the human vessel, the crew began to understand the magnitude of their victory. They had done more than survive. They had proven a truth that would echo across the stars: humans are not to be measured by size, numbers, or technology alone. Humanity's strength lies in its will, its heart, and its determination to endure and overcome. The ship hummed quietly, systems stabilizing after the intense battle. The commander placed his hands on the console, feeling the subtle vibrations of the vessel beneath him. "We were one vessel," he said softly, "but our actions will ripple through the galaxy. Every system will know that humans endure. That humans adapt. That humans are unstoppable when they unite. The crew shared a silent moment, hearts beating in rhythm with the ship. They had faced the impossible, and they had won. Not by overwhelming firepower, not by superior numbers, but by being human, clever, brave, and relentless. From distant worlds, fleets watched the chaos unfold. Reports came in of civilian colonies cheering, of trading stations in awe, of independent ships calling for alliances with humans. One vessel had changed the perception of an entire species. One small human crew had made the galaxy take notice. The admiral, defeated and humiliated, stared at the stars. His voice was barely a whisper. They are humans. And we cannot stop them. Inside the human vessel, the commander allowed a small, quiet smile. No one can stop them, he whispered. Because we endure. We survive. We fight. And we are human. As the ship moved through the wreckage, the galaxy began to understand a truth it had long ignored. Humans were not weak. Humans were not insignificant. Humans were something entirely different, a species capable of turning despair into victory, weakness into strength, and survival into legend. And in the silent void of space, the small vessel glided onward, carrying with it the unyielding spirit of humanity. The galaxy would never forget this day. The story of one lone vessel facing hundreds of warships, and not just surviving, but triumphing, would echo across the stars for generations. Because humanity had proven, once and for all, that courage, ingenuity, and heart were forces that no empire, no fleet, no calculation could ever defeat. And the crew, though weary and battered, knew the truth deep in their bones. This was only the beginning. The galaxy would test them again. But whatever the challenge, whatever the odds, humans would endure. Humans would survive. Humans would rise. And the stars themselves seemed to acknowledge it, dimly flickering as if in reverence to the lone vessel that had changed everything. The Imperial Armada was in chaos. Ships drifted aimlessly through the void, energy beams misfired, and command protocols collapsed under the weight of confusion. Hundreds of warships, the pride of the galaxy, had been undone not by overwhelming firepower, but by one human vessel and the brilliance, courage, and will of its crew. Panic spread like wildfire. Officers shouted, systems failed, and fear replaced every assumption they had ever held about humans. But inside the human vessel, there was no panic. No fear. Only focus, determination, and an unshakable resolve. The crew had survived impossible odds, outmaneuvered hundreds of ships, and turned the Armada's own arrogance into their downfall. Now, the time had come to strike. Not recklessly, not chaotically, but with precision, intelligence, and calculated force that the galaxy had never witnessed before. The commander stood at the center of the control room, eyes calm, voice steady. They believe survival is enough. They believe we are weak. Let us show them the truth. This is the counter-strike. Every move must be precise. Every strike must count. Today, they will learn that humans endure. Humans adapt. Humans triumph. The crew moved in perfect unison. Pilots twisted the vessel through impossible angles, engines flaring in harmony with shield pulses. Weapons officers readied micromissiles and energy disruptors, not for brute destruction, but to manipulate, confuse, and dismantle enemy formations. Engineers rerouted power to amplify shields at the exact moment enemy weapons fired. Every system worked together as if the vessel itself had a mind that understood courage, ingenuity, and human spirit. Outside, the Armada tried to regroup. Destroyers formed lines, cruisers adjusted formations, capital ships unleashed volleys of energy fire, but it was too late. The human vessel, moving like a predator, anticipated every strike. Each enemy ship that fired missed, overcompensated, or collided with its own allies. The Armada's strength, once absolute, now became its undoing. The young pilot, sweat dripping down her face, muttered, They're trapped in their own chaos. Every move we make, it's like they're playing into it without knowing. The commander's eyes narrowed. Yes. Let them. Their arrogance is their weapon, and now, it's ours. Micromissiles fired in synchronized arcs, exploiting weak points in enemy shields. Energy disruptors scrambled targeting systems across dozens of ships simultaneously. Imperial destroyers collided with cruisers, energy discharges erupted unpredictably, and the flagship itself was forced to divert power to shields that failed anyway. The Armada was unraveling, piece by piece, under the hands of a crew the galaxy had underestimated. The Admiral screamed across the void, voice cracking with desperation and disbelief. "Stop them! Stop that vessel! They cannot, no!" But the humans did not stop. They pressed forward, exploiting every opening, punishing every miscalculation, turning chaos into dominance. The vessel darted between massive ships, pulling off maneuvers that should have been impossible. Shields flared at the exact moment energy beams threatened to pierce the hull. Weapons fired at precise intervals, creating chain reactions that disabled multiple enemy ships at once. The crew felt exhaustion, yes, but it was drowned in adrenaline, focus, and unity. They were not just surviving, they were controlling the battlefield. One vessel, small and alone, was dictating the actions of hundreds of ships, turning panic into collapse, confusion into annihilation. Imperial officers looked at each other in horror. How? How can one vessel do this? How can they anticipate every move? The Admiral's face was pale, hands shaking over controls. They are humans. They are impossible. We cannot stop them. Inside the vessel, the commander whispered quietly to his crew. Remember this. This is what it means to be human. Against all odds, against every calculation, we endure. We adapt. We survive. And we triumph. Nothing the galaxy has thrown at us can break that. Nothing. The ship twisted through the void again, this time targeting the Imperial flagship. Micromissiles struck systems critical to propulsion, energy disruptors scrambled shields, and the vessel itself moved through the chaos unharmed. The flagship drifted helplessly, a colossal symbol of Imperial pride rendered powerless by the ingenuity and courage of humans. Around them, the rest of the Armada collapsed. Destroyers collided. Cruisers drifted out of formation. Energy arrays overloaded. The galaxy watched in awe and disbelief. One human vessel, alone, had turned the mightiest fleet into a field of chaos. The crew shared a silent moment, hearts pounding in unison. They had survived impossible odds. They had outsmarted the strongest fleet the galaxy had ever known. They had turned fear into triumph. And they knew, deep in their bones, that this was not the end. This was a declaration. Humanity had arrived, and nothing, no fleet, no empire, no calculation, could ever underestimate them again. The commander spoke softly, almost reverently. We have done more than survive. We have changed the galaxy's understanding of what humans are. And this is only the beginning. Remember it. Humanity endures. Humanity survives. Humanity triumphs. The vessel glided through the wreckage, battered but unbroken, carrying with it the spirit of an entire species. Across the galaxy, every eye watching knew the truth. Humans were no longer insignificant. Humans were a force unlike any other. They endured. They adapted. They triumphed. And in the cold, silent void of space, the small human vessel moved forward, unyielding, unstoppable, legendary. The galaxy would never forget the day one lone ship faced an armada, and won. The void of space was filled with silence, silent but not empty. The wreckage of the Imperial Armada floated like shattered monuments to arrogance, illuminated only by flickering energy discharges and drifting debris. The galaxy had never witnessed a victory like this. One lone human vessel had not only survived hundreds of enemy warships but had turned their own strength into their undoing. Entire systems across light years paused, observing reports, listening to transmissions, and realizing the truth. Humans were not weak, humans were not insignificant, humans were unstoppable. News spread faster than any fleet. From trading hubs to mining stations, from academies to military outposts, whispers became voices, voices became reports, reports became headlines. One human vessel had shattered an Imperial formation. Hundreds of ships destroyed. Hundreds more disabled. A flagship crippled, and the Admiral himself defeated. One vessel had rewritten the rules. One species had claimed a moment of glory no empire had expected. Inside the human vessel, the crew could feel the weight of what they had done. Exhaustion sat heavy in their bones. Hands shook from constant control adjustments, eyes strained from monitoring every system, hearts pounding from unrelenting focus. Yet beneath it all was pride, quiet and steady. They had faced the impossible and survived. They had outsmarted a fleet that the galaxy had thought invincible. The commander walked slowly through the control room, voice calm yet carrying authority. Look at what we have achieved. One vessel, one crew, against hundreds. They believed we would fail. They believed we were weak. And yet, here we are. Victorious. Alive. Human. The young pilot, still gripping her controls, whispered, We really did it, didn't we? The commander nodded. Yes. And remember this is only the beginning. The galaxy will remember today. They will know what humans are capable of. We endure, we survive, we fight, and we triumph. That is the truth of humanity. Beyond the vessel, the galaxy itself seemed to respond. Independent fleets paused in awe. Civilian colonies erupted in cautious celebration. Neutral species sent communications, some to congratulate, some to warn their own, all acknowledging the impossible. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and the echo of their courage and ingenuity could be felt across light years. The Imperial Admiral, humiliated and broken, sat frozen on his bridge. For the first time in decades, fear replaced arrogance. They are not what we thought. They are impossible. His officers exchanged worried glances, realizing their pride and technology had been outmatched not by numbers, but by heart, courage, and ingenuity. Inside the human vessel, the crew felt the magnitude of the moment. They had survived. They had triumphed. But they also understood something greater. Their actions had changed perceptions across the galaxy. Humans would no longer be underestimated. Humans would no longer be ignored. Humans would be feared and respected. The commander spoke quietly to his crew, almost reverently. This is what it means to be human. We endure. We survive. We adapt. And we triumph. Our strength is not in numbers, not in technology, not in fleets. Our strength is in our will, our courage, and our unity. Remember it. The galaxy will never forget it. The crew, exhausted but steadfast, shared a silent moment. They had faced annihilation and emerged victorious. They had faced the arrogance of an empire and turned it against itself. They had shown the galaxy that one small vessel, guided by human courage and intelligence, could change the course of events across entire star systems. Reports came in from other sectors. Independent fleets, once dismissive of humanity, now watched with wary respect. Colonies that had once mocked humans now shared messages of hope and admiration. Entire species began to recalculate their understanding of humanity. The lone vessel had done what no empire, no fleet, no weapon could have done. It had reshaped perception. The commander leaned against the console, his voice soft but firm. We have not only survived. We have taught the galaxy a lesson. One vessel, one crew, can make the impossible possible. And the galaxy will remember this. Humans endure. Humans survive. Humans triumph. The ship glided through the wreckage of the Armada, battered yet unbroken, a beacon of courage, intelligence, and the unyielding human spirit. Across the stars, systems paused, fleets recalculated, and the galaxy began to understand a new truth. Humans were no longer a species to be underestimated. The crew, though weary, felt a quiet exhilaration. They had faced impossible odds and emerged not just victorious, but legendary. And in the silence of the void, the commander whispered once more, We are human. We endure. We survive. We triumph. And the galaxy will never forget it. The stars themselves seemed to acknowledge it, flickering faintly as if in respect for the lone vessel that had turned history on its head. Humanity's legend was no longer a promise. It was reality. And the galaxy had only just begun to understand the power of one species, united, resilient, and unstoppable. The Imperial Armada was collapsing. What had once been the mightiest fleet in the galaxy now floated in disarray, crippled and confused. Ships drifted, collided, and misfired their own weapons. Their communications were filled with panic and disbelief. For the first time in history, an entire fleet had been undone not by overwhelming firepower, not by superior numbers, but by a single human vessel guided by courage, intelligence, and unyielding will. Inside the vessel, the crew moved as one, seamlessly. Every sensor scan, every energy reroute, every maneuver was executed with precision. They were not just surviving, they were dominating the battlefield. The commander stood at the front of the control room, calm, eyes focused, yet carrying a weight no one outside could understand. "This is the moment," he said softly, almost to himself. "The galaxy will see humanity at its full strength. Not as prey. Not as weaklings. But as a force to be reckoned with." Pilots executed impossible maneuvers, weaving between massive warships without a scratch. Weapons officers released targeted micro-disruptors, causing chain reactions that disabled dozens of enemy ships at once. Engineers amplified shields just in time to absorb volleys that could have destroyed the vessel. Every system, every human, every decision merged into a single unstoppable force. The admiral's voice, once booming with arrogance, now trembled across the void. "How? How is this possible? They are controlling everything. One vessel of humans." Imperial officers looked at each other, fear etched into their faces. Their pride, their training, their calculations, all of it meaningless against a species they had underestimated. Panic became paralysis. Orders went unheeded. Ships collided. Energy weapons misfired. Entire cruisers spun out of control, disabled before even engaging. The commander watched the tactical display, eyes narrowing with satisfaction. They cannot calculate courage. They cannot calculate heart. They cannot calculate the will to survive. That is where humans triumph. That is where we dominate. The crew, exhausted but unwavering, felt the weight of history upon them. This was no longer just a battle. This was a declaration. Humanity had arrived. The galaxy would never again see humans as weak, as prey, as insignificant. One vessel, one crew, had reshaped the perception of an entire species. Micromissiles struck the Imperial flagship with calculated precision. Energy disruptors scrambled shields, weapon systems, and communications simultaneously. The flagship drifted helplessly, a massive symbol of Imperial pride rendered powerless. Around it, destroyers and cruisers spun out of control, colliding with each other, caught in a chain reaction the humans had orchestrated. The Armada, once proud and feared, was now a chaotic wreck, falling apart under the subtle but devastating influence of one small vessel. The commander spoke softly to the crew, voice steady, carrying the weight of both pride and responsibility. "Do not strike recklessly. Every move must count. Every action must shape the outcome. Let them feel the full extent of human ingenuity and courage. This is what it means to survive. This is what it means to triumph. This is what it means to be human." The crew nodded, each movement synchronized, each action precise. The vessel became more than a ship, it became a symbol. Every maneuver, every pulse of energy, every adjustment to shields or engines, echoed across the battlefield as proof of human superiority not in numbers, but in mind, heart, and unyielding spirit. Imperial ships continued to collapse under the pressure of their own miscalculations. Destroyers drifted helplessly. Cruisers spiraled out of control. Capital ships overloaded, their power cores flickering dangerously. The admiral's voice broke as he realized the truth. His fleet was defeated, not by firepower, not by strategy, but by one vessel of humans whose courage and ingenuity had surpassed anything the galaxy had ever seen. The commander's eyes swept across the display. "Observe, crew. Witness the moment the galaxy learns the truth. One vessel, one crew, has defeated 100 ships. And the galaxy will never forget this." Micromissiles struck with calculated force, energy disruptors scrambled the remaining systems, and the human vessel moved through the chaos unharmed, untouchable, unstoppable. The Armada's final resistance crumbled. The Imperial admiral slumped, defeated, witnessing the full magnitude of what humans had achieved. The crew felt a quiet, profound exhilaration. They had faced impossible odds. They had survived when every calculation, every expectation, every probability said they would fail. They had triumphed, not through sheer numbers, not through overwhelming firepower, but through courage, intelligence, and unity. They were human, and in this moment, the galaxy could not ignore them. The commander spoke softly, yet every word carried the weight of victory and history. "We endure. We survive. We triumph. Humanity is no longer insignificant. Humanity is unstoppable. And the galaxy will remember this day forever." The stars themselves seemed to acknowledge it, flickering faintly, as if recognizing the lone vessel that had changed the course of history. Across systems, fleets watched in awe, colonies whispered tales of courage, and even enemies who survived knew a new truth: humans were no longer prey. Humans were legends. The vessel moved forward, battered but unbroken, carrying with it the unyielding spirit of humanity. One ship had faced an entire armada, and won. One crew had demonstrated that survival, courage, and ingenuity could overcome any obstacle. And the galaxy would never again see humans as weak, insignificant, or powerless. Humanity had triumphed. The armada was defeated. And in the endless void of space, one small vessel carried the legacy of an entire species, unyielding, unstoppable, legendary, and eternal. The battle was over. The Imperial Armada lay in ruins, drifting silently through the void of space, a testament to arrogance undone and pride shattered. What had once been the mightiest fleet in the galaxy was now nothing more than scattered debris. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, as if the universe recognized the enormity of what had occurred. One lone human vessel had faced hundreds of warships, and had not only survived but emerged victorious. The galaxy had witnessed something impossible. Inside the vessel, the crew moved quietly, tending to systems, repairing damage, stabilizing shields, and checking life support. Every member was exhausted, hands trembling, muscles screaming, eyes burning from strain, but beneath the exhaustion lay an overwhelming, almost sacred pride. They had faced annihilation, stared into the jaws of impossibility, and won. And not just for themselves, they had won for humanity. The commander walked through the control room, observing his crew. He had no grand speech planned. No words could contain the magnitude of what they had done. Instead, he looked at them silently, letting his gaze convey everything: respect, gratitude, pride, and awe. "We are human," he said softly. "We endure. We survive. We triumph. And the galaxy will remember this day forever." The young pilot, her hands still shaking from the adrenaline, whispered, We really changed everything, didn't we?" The commander nodded slowly. "Yes. One vessel, one crew, one species. We have changed the galaxy's understanding of what humans are. They will never underestimate us again. They will never forget what we are capable of." Outside the vessel, signals flashed across star systems. Independent fleets paused in awe, civilian colonies shared stories in wonder, and distant civilizations began to reconsider humanity's role in the cosmos. Even neutral and hostile species acknowledged the truth: humans were no longer insignificant, weak, or powerless. Humans were resilient, intelligent, and unstoppable. Humanity had stepped fully into its place among the stars, not through conquest alone, but through ingenuity, courage, and relentless will. The admiral, humiliated and defeated, retreated to the remnants of his flagship. His pride, once absolute, was shattered. He had underestimated humans, and he had paid the price. "Impossible," he muttered to no one. They are human, and we cannot match them." His officers looked at him in despair, realizing that the galaxy had shifted irreversibly. Humanity had claimed its place. Inside the vessel, the crew understood the deeper meaning of their victory. They had survived impossible odds, but more importantly, they had reshaped the perception of their species. Across light years, stories would be told of the small human vessel that faced an armada alone, and won. Children on distant planets would grow up hearing about courage, ingenuity, and unity. Entire civilizations would remember that humans, when united, could achieve the impossible. The commander paused at the observation deck, looking out at the wreckage and the stars beyond. "This is just the beginning," he said softly. "The galaxy has learned who we are. But humanity's story does not end here. It will continue. Every challenge, every battle, every impossible odds we face, we will endure. We will survive. We will triumph. Because we are human." The crew gathered around him, silent but resolute. Exhaustion had not broken them. Fear had not defeated them. And doubt had no place aboard their vessel. They were human. They were clever, they were brave, and they were unstoppable. The galaxy had finally learned that truth. In the void, the vessel glided forward, battered but unbroken, carrying the legacy of humanity. One ship, one crew, had rewritten history. One small human presence had shifted the perception of an entire galaxy. And as systems across star clusters began to send communications of awe and cautious respect, the humans understood something eternal. Their courage, ingenuity, and unity were the greatest weapons of all. The commander spoke once more, almost to himself, but meant for all who could hear. Let the stars remember this day. Let the galaxy remember what humans are capable of. One vessel, one crew, one species. We endure. We survive. We triumph. And humanity's legacy will never fade. The stars flickered faintly, as if acknowledging the truth. Across billions of miles, across countless worlds, the story spread. One lone vessel had faced an armada. One crew had faced impossible odds. And one species had proven, once and for all, that humans were not to be underestimated, not to be dismissed, and not to be ignored. Humanity had arrived in the galaxy, not as prey, not as a curiosity, but as a force that could endure, adapt, and triumph against all odds. The legend of the lone vessel, of its courageous crew, and of their unbreakable spirit would echo through time and space. And in the silent expanse of the stars, one truth remained clear: humans endure. Humans survive. Humans triumph. And the galaxy would never forget it.